Thank you, BW Legal, for doing that. And I'm surrounded by, I think, the best brains that we have. And they've already threatened me to ask very difficult questions. In case I ask them a difficult question, they are going to counter-ask me difficult questions. So therefore, I've also bribed them all to tell at the end that I'm one of the best moderators that they've come across the whole day. Moving on, I think I'll start with Raghu, sir. The first format that I had in mind was that we must hear from all of them what is their understanding of white-collar crime. My understanding was basically from the first scam that I ever heard of, which was the Harshad Mehta scam. I don't know, the early 90s, I'm sure all of you must have seen that Netflix, I don't know, one of those series or movie. And then I think it was the Satyam scam that I heard about, which happened to be the second white-collar big crime. Then the 2G spectrum crime, and then we have the Nirav Modis of the world. So moving with Raghu sir to start and give his 2 minutes of dope on what white-collar crime looks like.
Thanks, Pallavi. You start with dope, right?
Yes.
Right? That's
you caught the googly that I was trying to put in.
So there's no dope here. I think we're all gentlemen, and I don't think anybody is on drugs, right? Okay. Thanks, Pallavi, for that introduction, and thanks, Business World, and thanks, audience, to bear with me one more time. In terms of, men by nature, human beings by nature are greedy. When it started, maybe the evolution started, there was no greed, but gradually, as things start happening, greed increases. The more the opportunity, the more the greed. So the question is that the white-collar crime and the white-collar crime is typically committed by people who are in positions, right? Because they have that opportunity. Greed is very human, right? It is not Indian, it is not American, it's across human race. So, and you mentioned a few of the scams, but there have been larger scams around the world as well, right?
Quite a lot,
so,
yes, sir.
So the question is that why they happen is because if there's an opportunity and you leave your doors open, people will swindle, right? What do you do? There are 2 or 3 things. First is that you have to have some preventive mechanism, right? And preventive mechanism, typically you lock your doors, and typically for companies you have very strong policies, you have maker-checker principles, there are people, while there is this access to various things, you are not the only one who's accessing, there are 10 people who are watching it, right?
Absolutely.
That's one way. The better your governance norms, the less likelihood. Criminals will still commit crime, but the less likelihood of such crimes being committed.
That's right.
The second thing is that how do you train people? You have to tell people that if you do this, this is the destination, right? And you have to be very firm. The better governed companies have less fraud. It's globally seen because the governance is not just letter, it's also in spirit, and there are people who are monitoring. Like I know typically in banks, other organizations think about audit. In banks, round the year, some audit or the other keeps happening. There's a corporate audit, there's an internal audit, there's a concurrent audit, there's a RBI audit, there is a global audit. There are a number of audits. So you're always on your toes, and the probability of anybody you getting caught is so high, and the repercussions of that, if you're getting, I'll give you very small, I'll not get into the bigger white-collar crimes, but reimbursement of fuel bills. And I'm giving you this as a live example. This was a gentleman who's sitting in a cabin next to my cabin. I didn't know. Concurrent audit, they pick up this particular claim in which the person has claimed some 25,000 bucks. And the bills that are enclosed, these are reimbursements, by the way, so people believe that that's their money.
Right, sir.
But he's put bills that are in serial order. So the concurrent auditor came, obviously redacted the name and said that if this happens, what is supposed to do? I said, the guy is supposed to leave. Simple. There are no questions asked. And then they divulged the name. And this guy was a guy of 14 years, of fantastic pedigreed professional career. But for that one mistake, he lost his job. So the question is that unless you have the controls, and then obviously the prostitution part, I have already mentioned that you have to do that. And laws will come, and therefore you're seeing more and more laws come in, more and more. But law can only do so much. It's that culturally you have to have processes, principles, everything in place. And you have to invest into that.
Right.
Control functions, people believe that control functions are a liability. I believe control functions are an asset to prevent damage from happening.
Right,
Yeah.
sir. Right, sir.
I'll pause there.
Sameet sir, would you want to add some 2 minutes of whatever
Sure. Thanks,
no
Raghu.
non-dope maybe?
Okay. So I think, I fully agree with him. And, normally there are two things. One is greed and the other is unawareness. Because as you said,
Right,
normally
right,
the corporate
correct.
frauds or the white collar frauds are generally done by the people in positions. So what we have seen is the people who are in authority or in positions are generally doing these kind of frauds.
Right, sir.
So one is greed, of course, greed. That's where, you need to have some policies, you need to have all things. But the other thing is unawareness at times.
Right.
And that's where the role of a GC or a compliance officer comes into picture, that you need to let them know also that this is something where you can actually fall upon, this is something where
Or
you can actually
that
get caught.
it is a crime.
Yeah.
Because a
So
lot
I
of
think,
time
the
people don't know.
awareness by the GCs to the persons, therefore I see a lot of role of training and awareness to the employees.
Right.
This is a kind of a, first level protection, I would say, when we can say that please make sure that you're not doing all these things, because then you don't know
Right, sir.
what will happen. So therefore, unawareness and greed is the important two things. One, criminologist in US actually give a very good example. He says there are 3 drivers to a white collar crime.
Right, sir.
Opportunity, as he rightly said, opportunity is always there. Whenever an opportunity, there will be chances of crime. That I said greed also.
Correct.
Second is pressure. At times what happens is you are actually in pressure either by your bosses or by, some family circumstances, some medical circumstances. You are in pressure to do some kind of a crime and you want to do that. Third and very interesting thing he said was rationalization. He said people start giving a rationale to the crime,
Absolutely.
saying, अरे भैया ऊपर वाले ने सबको बराबर बनाया
हाँ
है,
जी।
अगर मेरे पास ये opportunity है मैं ये करूँगा, और अगर उसको ये मिल रहा है मुझे नहीं मिल रहा तो क्यों? It's a rationalized,
Correct.
They're
Yeah.
trying to
We
justify their
always
crime
justify.
also. Yeah.
That's right, sir.
Correct.
Suresh, sir, would you want to add 2 bits?
2 bits only? Or?
Yeah, just 2 bits.
I look at this from a 3-tier perspective, right? I mean, if you look at the stakeholders, there are these lawmakers and there are these regulatory authorities, enforcement authorities. You see, the intent has always been to say that, okay, let us try and, make sure that there's a level playing field and there's a fair game that everybody is able to play. Okay. Then comes the organization where, my co-panelists, whatever they said, I would agree with that, there's an opportunity, there's a greed, there is sometimes pressure, and I'm not entirely certain I'm able to agree with the lack of awareness, because I'm sure these people are way smarter than normal people because they're able to know and manipulate the system.
Absolutely.
Right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that is one part, and which is where I feel that having very strong control mechanism and a very clear articulation of what the organization stands for and walking the talk. I mean, if somebody does not fall in line, if somebody falters even a little, there is zero tolerance, right? And then you come to the individual level where you look at, then it's an internal battle between, your dharma and what you believe is
correct.
right or wrong.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people can very easily, fall into this justification. I actually heard somebody saying that, oh, it's okay for a particular enforcement authority to take bribes because they are very poorly paid. But that's not the case. I mean, it's just justifying that. I don't think one can accept that kind of a justification.
That's correct. That's correct, sir. Manish, sir?
So let's take, for instance, apart from greed, there is also one thing which is called temptation. So in the Garden of Eden, if one was to start that the world started from Adam and Eve, there was a temptation to eat the forbidden fruit.
Absolutely, sir.
So in the independent India, I think the Mudra scam or the Jeep scam,
Oh, that's
which
right.
that was the first scam,
The first scam, yes.
which happened. And if you look at the scams have been there, and ultimately it's human. I'm just picking up what was said that the biggest scam in this country, if you say the white collar crime which happened, was East India Company.
That's
So
actually
that
true.
company got incorporated in 1600 by 271 merchants who put their trust or money together. And ultimately, does anybody know what happened to East India Company? Anybody can raise their
We
hand.
just bought it now, no? One of the Indians only have bought it.
Can anybody raise their hand? That's not correct.
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So that's not correct. So what happened was in 1857, East India Company, the company which had the exclusive rights to have business over India, it had exclusive control over India. It was not only required to work as per law, but it was law onto itself.
That's right.
It could actually make law.
The charters
It
were
was a
there.
private company which had an army of its own. Can anybody guess what happened to it? The company became bankrupt. In 1874, by the act of the British Parliament, maybe I can't remember the date correctly, the British Parliament, the company got wound up. So ultimately, so that I would think is the history of corporate crime,
Correct, yeah.
white collar crime, and insofar as the Gora Sahabs and the Governor Generals. And most of them, if you would look, even and this was true everywhere. The same thing happened with the Dutch East India Company.
Dutch East, yeah.
In France, there was another example. How many of you have heard of a gentleman called John Law? So it's very interesting. He created the bank, that is the central bank, the system of central bank, and he created in France. And the interesting part was that he was a son of a goldsmith. They used to issue hundis or the notes by putting in gold. And he realized that insofar as the gold system and the manner in which the rupee, the money can be, he could trade more. Everybody would not need the money on the same day. And he created that currency system which became vogue in France. He also became the finance minister and he created the Mississippi Company. And that company also got bankrupt.
Oh my God.
So that was the first joint stock company in Europe which was created. And the other interesting part which Sir used was dharma. Mahabharata is again a conflict of ethics, and ultimately what is dharma? To kill somebody is your dharma, not to kill somebody is also your dharma. And each one, there is swadharma, there is rashtradharma and things of that nature, and you keep justification in doing the same thing done by Bhisham Pitama with Amba and Ambalika. So he thought that it was right that he could not have got married. The same thing, he had taken a vow that he would never marry. And then you had Shikandi. A same kind of a vow at the 14th year was taken by Arjuna. There was Udupi, I think one of the tribals, and she said that you have to get married. And he did get married, and it was his dharma. So therefore, insofar as corporate frauds are concerned, they will keep happening. We have to have systems, processes, conscious, and norms of the society, they will keep happening. And it's nothing new. It has only changed its avatar. The corporate frauds have only started after the Industrial Revolution. There were no companies, there were no corporates, there were nothing black and white. And once it has come, it has happened. I think.
So I'm going to ask Sundaram sir now, because he's the one who's been threatening me all along that he's going to ask me tough questions. So here I am asking you a tough question as to what do you think? What's your dope on this? What's your dope on white collar crime?
So Pallavi, let me give some bigger picture about white collar crimes. According to a recent FBI data, US spends almost $300 billion annually to confront white collar crimes. If you look at some of the data which coming from Interpol, some of the data coming from World Economic Forum, two major areas which has been identified globally, which is going to pose a big challenge on the white collar crime in 2024 onwards. One is online digital transaction, and the second one is a cryptocurrency. So these are the two major areas. And if you go a little deeper to understand that why this is happening, why these two areas have been selected, two reasons. One is a big data push, which is happening now. And the second is technological advancement that is happening both in terms of AI and ML. So these are the reasons. As the technology is advancing, there is going to be a big challenge for any government entity, including India, to deal with these two sets of bigger challenges on the white collar crimes. Now, if you see, and that's a government data I will be talking about, as on 2023, there were 1.13 million financial cyber fraud that happened in India, amounting to some 7,800 crores, right? If you see cryptocurrencies, ED attached assets worth 900 crores as of 31st of January 2023. ED and CBI and FIU, they issued show cause notices to 9 offshore platforms who were into the business of cryptocurrencies. So that's the global pictures that I'm talking about. This is not going to end. Corporates will deal with white collar crimes. Now, what is the solution? So there are two solutions in my opinion. One is a global solution, which is an external solution, and second is the internal one. So when we talk about a global solutions, we are talking about global collaborations. So now if you see most of the investigating agencies, they are collaborating with each other across jurisdictions to deal with these nuances, right? So G20 was another big event which happened. India is a part of that G20. We just hosted G20. 85% of the global GDP is in G20. 75% of the global trade is happening in G20. So there is a whole collaboration now which is happening between countries to tackle this white collar crimes. So that collaboration is need of the hour, that needs to go. On the internal side, as my co-panelist said, there needs to be a strong compliance program within the organization. There is a need to have a strong whistleblower mechanism, because most of the scams that you spoke about, and we can speak more about it, if you look at the genesis of these scams, the genesis and the starting point is a whistleblower complaint which was ignored. If that is not ignored, many of these can be prevented.
So, Raghu sir, coming back to your observation with respect to greed.
The ones that you're referring to are typical companies that are very promoter driven.
Right, sir.
And typically promoters have their own coterie.
Right, sir.
You want to do something, you know, it's like you pull all your forces together to commit that white collar crime.
Right, sir.
It's like an insider trading. There are so many insider trading things have happened which are actually traded by the promoters but not in their name. It comes through some, in fact, I would dare to say, please not to be held against me, but one of the reasons why IBC is failing.
Yes, sir.
Why is IBC failing?
I moderate a
Yeah.
panel tomorrow,
No.
which is on mediation and
No, no.
IBC, and I think that's the reason.
This is
You're right.
exactly the reason why IBC is
Absolutely.
failing, because
Absolutely.
it is not coming clean.
Absolutely.
You know, people are filing insolvency petitions to evade the debt that they have taken and take the asset back at a
At a
far
throwaway
lower rate.
price.
So
That's correct,
one shot
yeah.
you clean up the debt that you've done.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
it is wrong on my part to say that, but we've been a part of a lot of IBC bids, and we suddenly realized somewhere that it's not happening because nobody's looking at your bid.
That's right.
They are looking at something else. And sorry to quote, the counsel who was on the other side, who happened to be a good friend of mine, on the sideline said, Raghu, kahan phasa hua tu? He just told me. He says, where are you? And we were bidding after bidding,
Yeah.
because, you know, there is
Yeah,
this credit
yeah.
committee and all that, they have to see whoever is. But I was softly told, and after the fourth bid, we said, enough, we withdrew. But the question is that you can make laws, people are bidding, and I would want to see someday where IBC really goes behind people who are trying to camouflage this and punish them, because unless you really make an example out of this, you can make laws.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
people talk about, say, murder. Either life imprisonment or hanging, that's a different matter. That's a matter
Correct.
of court.
Yeah.
But till the time you punish somebody who's actually murdered, if there is enough evidence, it will never stop.
True.
So the question is that why do corporates? Because there is this huge penchant of trying to grow at any cost. That at any cost is where the problem starts. If you look at today, look at the so-called unicorns. Till about a year back, we used to hear every day there was a unicorn.
Unicorn, that's true.
And
That's
now
true.
you hear every day a unicorn is bursting.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's because how is the valuation games, right?
Third,
It's
fourth
a
round of,
valuation game based on
funding.
future revenues, based on future EBITDAs, not on current EBITDAs.
Absolutely.
You know, you can take future projections, but that cannot be your sole basis of valuations.
Absolutely.
So my friend from Deloitte, I know
He
they,
would know
they know all the valuation game. He is smiling, but that's the way it is. And why do you never see a Tata initiative fail, or for that matter, any of the big industrial houses? Because it's based on solid output, based on which valuations happen, not based on that today I have an idea,
Yeah.
and then I do an Excel sheet, then I do a PowerPoint, go to a private equity guy, he trusts you. So it's actually who's holding the baby and the bathwater at the end.
That's right, sir.
And that guy is in for trouble. In between people, the whole chain. And it's all white collar crime. I would think that promoting that kind of thing is also vital. I'm not saying that you should not go by valuation, you should not give adequate weightage to that, but the question is that somewhere we are forgetting the woods for the trees.
As a matter of fact, only yesterday I came across an infra company and there were some 15 SRAs which were there. And that infra company, I was surprised I'd never heard of. And 15 good SRAs. I was myself surprised that, you know, an IBC mechanism is used for a company which nobody knows of. So I think must be the land bank or something like that.
In my previous company we were extremely acquisitive, which they are still. We, at any point in time, I used to have about 40 odd projects on my table,
Correct.
M&A initiative.
Yeah.
But we used to leave them because, you know, people expect the moon. You must look at what is it that you want to do in that. Because this is how white-collar crime is perpetrated.
The question that I have is that the biggest challenge that these days corporate India at least is facing is lengthy investigations. How is it that in, you know, your own risk management strategies do you accommodate all of these factors? Because as a company secretary also, like Sir said, that, you know, there are audits which happen multiple times and, you know, there are pain areas that you come across. How do you incorporate that in your own risk management strategies?
Yeah, so I think you need to have proper controls and audits and everything is required, absolutely. But I think the most important thing among all these which I realized in my career is that awareness and trainings.
Yeah.
That actually plays a very important role because until and unless you tell them and you actually train them, tell them that these are the things which you have to avoid it and these are the things wherein you can, as I told you earlier also, it's very important. The other important, protection, or I would say is a tool which is not very well used in India is vigil mechanism or whistleblower tool actually.
Yeah.
So whistleblower tool is a very, very important tool, very significant thing. And if it is properly, adequately used, problem is that, you know, the whistleblower has to be properly, adequately protected. There is no victimization. Now the SEBI even says that you have to write in the policy itself
Right.
that there will be no victimization of the whistleblower, etc., etc. But still people are, you know, they don't come up actually. Even if you know that something is happening, you want to do that, but you are not coming up. So I think if you encourage this practice of whistleblowing in a much more manner, much more transparent manner and encourage this with the trainings and all, I think this is one of the wonderful tool for a risk management. And the other thing I have seen and which I have realized is that if, you know, because everything has to set at the top tone. If your promoters or CEO, the management, they're ethical, generally you don't find much chances of, you know, the frauds in the organization.
Right.
Plus, it also relates to the well-being of your employees at times, I've seen. You know, if you are taking care of your employees very well, and you know you are taking care of them, there are transparent policies, employees are feeling happy, they're happy in the organization, even if there are opportunity, they don't go for that, you know. They don't think of even that because, you know, everyone, they're taking care of me very well. So I think one must also understand at the promoter level or at the, you know, management level that taking care of your employees, well-being of employees is very, very important to understand that they shouldn't get any pressure or any rationalization for the white-collar crime.
Correct. The dharma comes in play then. Suresh sir, I have a question for you, which is that insider trading has been a very big source of white collar crime. SEBI has definitely come up with bits. What do you think about it? Do you think it is really according the chances that you know, in some manner the insider trading has really taken a backseat now?
See, if you really look at it from the perspective of SEBI, and I've interacted with the SEBI officials, and they've got their hearts and head in the right place. Okay?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really want to do things right.
But it's surprising, you know, they send you notices after 10 years. I mean, there's so many of these matters which are pending in Supreme Court just now. That,
Maybe,
you know,
maybe in some exceptional cases, but from what we have seen, you know, they are very, very prompt.
Mhm.
And also, being an advocate, you will know that in certain cases, if it's a criminal matter,
Right, sir.
it'll get picked up once it is known that a crime has been committed.
Absolutely.
So perhaps the example that you're giving could be in that category.
Correct.
But what I'm saying is that if you look at the statistics in the last 7 to 10 years, if you look at it, the sheer number of investigations that SEBI has done has gone on a very, very steep curve. And in the last couple of years, they've done 140 plus investigations. And SEBI is doing a lot of work. If you look at the requirements that they have to come out, I mean, every organization has to come out with a structured digital database where people need to track who are the list of people who have received unpublished price-sensitive information.
Right,
at what time did they receive? What communications they exchanged? They're really trying every possible means to curb this kind of a menace.
So you
Yeah.
think that it is actually in the right direction?
I think
with
it's in the right direction, and the market is also realizing it that SEBI is serious about it, and definitely I believe it has had its positive impact.
Right. Manish sir, coming to you, since you represent one of the biggest infra companies, if I may say so, housing and infra companies, and we've seen in the past that there are so many builders who just sort of run away with innocent home buyers' money. What is it that DLF does differently, which we see that the other builders are really not incorporating?
So I'll not talk about DLF, but I'll give you a general overview.
Right, sir.
So the first thing is I understand my limitations. I don't talk about the company. So what has happened is that again, taking it from the first expression, greed. Greed took over everybody insofar as Noida was concerned, insofar as Delhi was concerned. There was no laws. We did not have RERA. We did not have. We do not have a robust system. IBC did not know how to deal with insofar as the insolvency with respect to home buyers were concerned.
Correct. Yeah.
We made a mess out of it. We did not realize that 1 lakh rupees you could go to IBC. So they did not realize probably they've taken it to 1 crore. Probably they should have taken it more. So they would have dealt with it in a proper manner. So I think IBC was not there, RERA was not there, land laws were not there. Generally, insofar as outside of Delhi, even in Delhi, average around about 6 years it takes for a case to get sorted at the first level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the entire infrastructure which was there in the legal framework which was there, it is encouraging for people to do those kinds of things. There were political changes. The Noida happened because you took land from the government. So I'll give you an example. You could pay 10% of that amount, just the registration value, and then ultimately you could sell. Loans were available, and you could play on people's money. So again, the greed takes place. Everybody wants to buy one house, second house, third house, fourth house. It's very easy for you to buy your second, third, and fourth house. It's very difficult to buy your first house. So as a result of which the government and their laxity facilitated that kind of a fraud to happen, or that kind of a thing to happen. Nobody wants to get bankrupt, but if you look at before IBC, no real estate developer had ever gone bankrupt.
Absolutely true.
So this bankruptcy of real estate people has only after happened in the last 10 years. And before that, if you look at, so I think the framework was not there. The government was not vigilant. The RBI was not vigilant. The banks were not vigilant. IBC was not there. With IBC, RERA, and some modifications, if they were to update, upgrade, insofar as these laws are concerned, title insurance was to be introduced. I think this will be a thing of the past. So you'll have a lot of funds coming into, foreign investments coming into, and things will become better. So markets to correct themselves require some kind of frauds or things to happen, and then regulations are put in place. So today, I think so. We will have to see how things turn out, but the real estate market has become much more safer than what it was.
Do you think RERA is really effective in that sense? What's your...
See, RERA is a very, very positive and a good step. So today, nobody launches a project unless one is sure that insofar as she, it can deliver. And therefore, RERA and IBC put together,
Yes, sir.
it's become very difficult for somebody to launch a project and not to complete it.
Correct.
The consequences are so large that very particular company will become bankrupt for sure.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, I do think that, of course, there is a lot of improvement which is required. A lot of blame is to be put on the lawyers. I think the regulations have done insofar as people, litigants and lawyers have to improve. Laws are quite up to mark.
Done a good job there. That brings me to you, sir. There are so many compliances and so many regulations that are coming in every day. Do you think that is accommodative of ease of doing business, or do you think that these actually act as a hindrance with the the regulations that are coming to stop the white collar crime?
All kind of M&A transactions that's happening, the investors and the transferor and transferees, they're all looking at what kind of a compliance program the organizations has. And that has a very important bearing on the entire due diligence report that you generate. Effective compliance program is something which is a must today if you really want to prevent a corporate fraud. Whistleblowing, as we said, is an important tool. The most important part, which is over and above all this, is a cultural transformation. It's important that the tone from the top should be very positive, and the organization should focus on a cultural transformation. Most of these frauds which you see internally is routed through a third-party contracts.
Right, sir.
And
Right.
small invoices, bills, travel bills. These are small incidences which ultimately roll up to a bigger scam. So that tone from the top, a strong message from the top, along with a strong compliance program.
I'll have a last question here because I see my time's up. But how many whistleblowers have you guys come across? I mean, being the GC, you have one. Yeah,
We
but
all
all of them.
us must have
and
come
they've
across.
been given the adequate protection that they require, or is it what we see in the movies?
So just to add, I
Yeah.
mean, whistleblower protection legislation is yet to come into operation.
Correct.
But having said that, internally, at least many of us,
Yeah.
I can vouch for other GCs as well, many of us ensures that the whistleblower's name, identity is duly protected.
Is protected.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and each one of us do that investigation. That's a part of our GC
yes.
role,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the tone at the top matters a lot.
Yeah.
And I would agree with what Amar said that we have seen people raise, and in a sense, it is a vindication that they believe that your organization is mature enough to handle that kind of a matter.
Yeah.
And then you deliver, and that gives people the confidence that, okay, non-compliance or wrongdoing is not tolerated in the organization.
But that's quite adventurous also, no, to look at whistleblowing in that sense.
See, whistleblowing only comes into play when people have belief and faith in the system.
That's right.
And
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
culture that I think, I've been a GC now 30 plus years. So I've seen that evolution.
Right,
Today,
sir.
the GCs are people who have a voice.
Yes, sir.
You know, they are no more postmen who used to sit, pick up a problem of the business, send it to a law firm, and law firm decides what had to happen. Having said that, it's also tone at the top. People now don't want to just make money at any cost. There are people, you know, there will always be outliers.
Right,
But
sir.
majority of the big business houses that are doing, they want to set standard. They're building institutions. They are not running a small business. Like, to give you an
Yeah.
example, what Manish was referring to, maybe an organization of his, it's an institution now.
That's right. Yeah.
They're not just real estate players. They are an institution by themselves.
Correct.
Whereas there are many people who are running. So similar kind of things are happening. There's a new generation of entrepreneurs. You know, this is maybe first or second generation entrepreneurs. And we are also learning from the Western world. But one point, or to Suresh's point, where ease of doing business, I think we are going through that churn right now. If you honestly ask me, is there ease of doing business? My vote would say that no, there's no ease. There is far more complex things that you have to comply with. Once we go through this churn over a period of time and things start falling into place, then the trajectory will go up.
That's right.
That's my belief.
I think
Yep.
all of you are in that stage where you've seen the previous 2 decades also, and the ones that are going to come now. And with the whistleblowing, I think it's just that how much of an organization is able to provide that comfortable environment for a person to open up and say that, okay, this I think is wrong. So
And there are mechanisms in which you protect the whistleblower.
correct.
The whistleblower doesn't have to, earlier the whistleblower used to write to the HR,
Oh, okay.
used to write to the chairman. Now it goes straight to the audit committee.
Uh-huh.
And or you have an ombudsman who's outside the office,
Office,
and
yes.
companies are investing into that.
Correct.
And and obviously the ombudsman has to report to the board and to the audit committee chairman without naming the person, saying that these are the 5 complaints that I've received. And the management also is giving adequate budgets,
Right, sir.
because for typical multinationals like
Right,
the
sir.
one that I used to work for earlier, 42 markets we used to operate. So the ombudsman would travel all around the world, and I used to actually joke with him. I said, your life is much better than the GC's life. You get to grow anonymous.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell anybody why you're going to Budapest, but you go to Budapest and come back, right? And then
That's
you
right.
give me a 2-sheet pages that I investigated, which fine, I believe you. But that's the good part of it.
But that's quite interesting. Time's up, and they've got the buzzer on also. So let's just any questions, anyone? I think everybody's sleepy. Sorry. Anybody wants to wake up and ask us some whistleblowing question or a dope question? No one. Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you so much for all of you.